She almost didn't hear him come in. The chairs were already up on the tables, the register counted, and Norma was on her knees behind the counter looking for the mop. She was pretty sure Dottie had left in the wrong closet again when the bell above the door went off. She didn't stand up right away, just closed her eyes for a second. "We're closed." "I know." She stood up then. He was maybe 70, 72. A suit that cost more than her car, probably more than 2 of her cars, and he was standing in the doorway turning a hat in his hands like he needed something to do with the nervous energy. The door was still open behind him. Cool October air coming through. He wasn't looking around the diner the way people do when they walk into a new place. He was looking straight at her, like he'd already been here 1,000 times in his head and was just now showing up in person. "Sir, I'm sorry, Are you Norma Harlow?" She stopped. Something about the way he said it. Not like a customer trying to find someone. Like a man who'd been carrying that name around for a long time and had finally put it down somewhere. "Depends," she said. He took one careful step inside. Just one. "My name is Walter Pruitt." His voice was steady, but his hands weren't, still working that hat. "I knew your mother." The refrigerator hummed. Outside on the highway, a truck downshifted, the sound fading out toward nothing. "My mother died in February," Norma said. "I know. I found out in March." He swallowed. It took me a while to get here." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she went and started a pot of coffee she didn't want, because it was something to do that wasn't standing there staring at a stranger in an expensive suit who knew her mother's name. She'd worked the Tuesday-Thursday closing shifts at Patsy's for 11 years. Long enough that she knew which booths squeaked, which regulars were good for a 20, and which ones would fight you over a nickel, which nights were going to be bad before anyone walked through the door. She was 39. She lived alone in a rental house 3 miles up the road, with a leak under the bathroom sink she kept meaning to call someone about. She had 4 close friends, and saw 2 of them regularly. She didn't hate her life. She didn't love it either. It was hers. That felt like enough most days. Her mother had died on a Wednesday morning in February, and Norma had been at the hospital, and it had been quiet, the kind of quiet that isn't peaceful, just final. Pneumonia, technically, though Norma had stopped thinking of it that way. Carol Harlow was 71 years old and had worked hard her entire life and had, somewhere in the last year or so, seemed to decide she was finished. Norma had watched it happen slowly and hadn't known what to do about it, and still didn't. She'd taken the bracelet off her mother's wrist herself the morning after. Turquoise stones, hammered silver, the kind of thing you buy at a craft fair. Carol had worn it every day of Norma's life. Norma hadn't planned to take it. She'd just done it, quick and careful, like if she moved fast enough it wouldn't feel like what it was. She was wearing it now. She set a cup in front of him and sat down across the table and looked at him the way she'd look at a check she thought might be short. Clear-eyed, ready. "How'd you know her?" she said. He put both hands around the mug. Didn't drink. "We were together when we were young. 21, 22. It would have been 1984, 85. Norma heard that, heard the years. "I was born in 86, she said. Flat. Just putting it on the table. He nodded barely. "I know when you were born." "Okay." She leaned back in her chair. Her heart was doing something she was trying to ignore. "So, say it then." He looked at her. "I'm your father." The words just sat there. She'd half expected them, had seen them coming from about 2 sentences ago, and it still felt like the floor had shifted 2 inches to the left. She pressed her foot flat against it to make sure. "My father died in a car accident," she said. I was 2. That's what Carol told you. Yeah, her voice came out tight. That's what happened. Norma, don't. She held up one hand. She needed a second. She took it. Don't just, give me a second. He waited. She'd give him that. He waited. She stood up, went behind the counter, stood with her back to him with her hands braced against the edge of it, looking at the coffee maker like it was going to tell her something useful. Her mother's face, the way Carol looked when Norma's father came up, which was almost never. A quick drop of the eyes, a hand to her collarbone. He was a good man. He died too young. Change of subject, every single time. Clean and fast, no loose ends. She turned around. She lied to me. Don't tell me she was protecting me. Her voice cracked on the last word and she hated it. Don't tell me that right now. He didn't say anything. She was protecting me, Norma said, because she knew it was true, even while it made her furious, and she hated that too. She sat back down. Her hands weren't quite steady. Why'd you leave? He didn't dress it up, didn't clear his throat and build to it. Just said, I was 22, and I was scared, and I was broke, and I was a coward. I left a note on her kitchen table. I'm not ready for this, I'm sorry. That was it. He paused. She was 3 months pregnant. Norma stared at him. You left a note, she said. Yes, and she told me you were dead. She laughed, short and humorless, more like a cough. God, Mom. Walter's mouth moved like he was going to say something, then didn't. She respected that more than she expected to. What do you want? She said. From me. Why are you here? I don't want anything. He shifted in the chair. I own a company, real estate, started from nothing. I'm 72 years old and I live in a house in Austin with 12 rooms, and I eat dinner alone, and I have for years. I'm not here to hand you a sad story and collect forgiveness. I know what I did. He stopped. Started again. I found out she died in March, and I sat with that for a while, and then I couldn't sit with it anymore. The table between them wobbled when Norma set her elbow on it. It always wobbled. She'd been working around that leg for 11 years without ever actually fixing it. I sent money, Walter said. A long time ago. 15 years. $50,000. No return address. No name. She went very still. 15 years ago, she'd been 24, working 2 jobs and applying to graduate school, and then suddenly there had been enough. Her mother had told her it was a small inheritance from a great-uncle somewhere, named him and everything. Norma had believed it without question because she was 24 and tired, and because Carol had said it the way Carol said everything, clearly, quietly, like it was simply a fact. My master's degree, she said. He nodded. She took it. She wasn't sure if she was saying it to him or herself. She could have sent it back. She took it and she used it for me, and she never said a word. He reached into his jacket pocket and put an envelope on the table between them. Her name on the front. Her mother's handwriting. And she knew that handwriting the way she knew her own face. Her lawyer had it, Walter said. She left instructions. If I ever came looking. If I ever came looking. Her mother had anticipated this, had written a letter and sealed it and filed it with her lawyer and gone about her life, had known that one day a man in a good suit might walk into a diner and say, I'm your father, and had decided, with characteristic precision, that her daughter would not be left with only one version of events. Norma looked at the envelope for a long time without touching it. Come back tomorrow, she said. All right. He stood up, put on his hat. Set a 20 on the table, too much for 2 coffees, and she thought about saying something and didn't. He walked to the door and stopped with his hand on the frame. He stopped, tried again. I knew she was extraordinary, even then, even when I was walking away from it. Norma didn't say anything. There wasn't anything to say to that. He left. The door swung shut. The lock clicked. She sat alone in the empty diner, the envelope in front of her. Her mother's handwriting, and outside the October dark had come all the way in, and the window was just black. She read it in her car in the parking lot because she couldn't make herself wait until she got home. 4 pages. She read it once fast, hands shaking a little, then again slower. Norma Jean. If you're reading this, he found you. I always figured he might eventually. Walter Pruitt is the kind of man who does the right thing about 15 years too late. I used to hate that about him. Now, I think it's just who he is. Her mother wrote about meeting him in San Antonio in the fall of 1984. Wrote about loving him the way she described most things in her life, straightforwardly, without romanticizing it. I loved him. He was funny and he was kind, and he was more afraid of things than he let on. When she told him she was pregnant, he went quiet for 3 weeks. And then there was the note. I told you he was dead because I needed you to have a father who was safe to love. A dead father you can grieve and move on. A father who left you. The handwriting here was slightly different, like she'd stopped and come back to it. That's a different kind of wound. I didn't want that for you. I know it was a lie. I'm not going to pretend it wasn't. The money he sent I kept for 2 weeks. I thought about sending it back, but it wasn't about him or me by then. It was yours. So I used it for what you needed. He is not a bad man. I want to be clear about that. He was a scared boy who made a terrible decision and then had to become a man while living with it. I have some sympathy for that now. I didn't for a long time. You don't owe him anything. You don't owe him forgiveness or time or a relationship or even a conversation if you don't want one. That's completely up to you, and I mean that. But I didn't want you to meet him and only know my side. You're old enough for the full story. You always were, really. I just couldn't figure out how to tell it. I would make every choice again. I want you to know that. The bracelet is yours, officially. Not just because I left it on my wrist when I died, but because I'm saying so. It's yours. All my love. Mom Norma sat in the dark parking lot for a long time with the letter in her lap. The heat in the car ticked and died, and she got cold and didn't start it back up. She was angry. She was so angry at the lie, at the clean lie that she'd carried around for 39 years and never once questioned. And underneath the anger there was something worse, which was that she understood it completely. She could feel exactly how Carol had arrived at that decision, could trace every step of the logic. Her mother had sat down and weighed it and made a choice, and it was the kind of choice you make once and then live with it. What she couldn't get to was what she would have said. If Norma had just walked up to her one day and asked, she'd had 39 years to ask. She never had. She drove home. She didn't cry until she was inside. And then she did, sitting on the kitchen floor with her back against the cabinet, which she was aware was a ridiculous place to cry, but couldn't seem to get up from. It wasn't graceful. It was the ugly kind, the kind where you can't catch your breath. She cried for her mother, and she cried, weirdly, for some version of herself at age 7 who'd dragged Carol to a father-daughter thing at school, and Carol had come and been cheerful and perfect about the whole thing and never once let on. She cried because there was a man out there who had missed all of it. Every single year of her life, he'd been somewhere else, getting good at real estate, eating dinner alone, and somewhere in the back of all of it, knowing. She stopped eventually, got up off the floor, looked at the bracelet. She hadn't known until tonight where it came from. He was in the parking lot again at 7:50 in the morning. She saw his car when she pulled in, same spot as the night before, like he'd never left. She sat in her car and looked at his car for a minute. Then she went and unlocked the diner. He came in at 8, still the suit, eyes that had not, clearly, seen much sleep. She didn't say anything right away, just poured 2 cups and sat down. He sat across from her and she looked at him in the morning light, this stranger with her mother's bracelet in his past, and tried to find something in his face that she recognized. Didn't know if she did or didn't. "I read it," she said. "How are you?" He stopped himself. Started differently. "What do you want to know?" "Did you know she was pregnant when you left?" "Yes." "Did you think about coming back?" He looked at his coffee. "At every year." He said it simply, not like he was trying to get credit for it. "First, I told myself I'd come back when I had something real to offer. Then I had it and told myself it was too late. Then I told myself she'd made a life. She was fine. Showing up would just—" He exhaled. "I was good at it, finding the reason not to. The money was the first honest thing you did." He didn't argue. "Second one is sitting here." He looked up at her. "I'm not going to pretend I feel something I don't," she said. "You're a stranger to me. You were involved in how I got here, and I know that matters, but you're still basically a stranger." She paused. "And I'm not doing some dramatic reunion. I'm not hugging you. I'm not calling you anything." "I know," he said. "I'm not asking for that." And then, quietly, "I'd like to, but I'm not asking." She hadn't expected him to say that. The honesty of it threw her. "There's a trust," he said. "I set it up last month. It's there if you want it, it just sits there if you don't. No strings, it's not a trade for anything." She looked at him for a while. He held it without flinching, which she was starting to think might be the only real skill a person could have. "She wore it every day," Norma said. She touched the bracelet without meaning to. "I never knew where it came from. She never told me." Something happened in Walter's face that she didn't quite know how to look at directly. "I bought it at a craft fair," he said. "We were broke. Splitting lunch, that kind of broke." She saw it on a table and didn't say anything, but the way she looked at it— He stopped. "I went back when she wasn't looking. Cost me most of a week's groceries." Norma looked down at the 3 turquoise stones. The hairline crack on the middle one she'd never noticed before today. "She was wearing it when I left," he said. "I remember because I looked at her wrist when I walked out. I don't know why I remember that, I just do. And she kept it. Wore it every single day for the next 40 years, never took it off, never said where it came from." Norma turned that over in her mind and couldn't find a word for what it meant. Not forgiveness exactly, not love exactly, something more stubborn than both. Dottie came in at 8:45, took one look at the 2 of them, read every word that wasn't being said, and walked straight to the kitchen without a word. A minute later, the grill came on. Norma felt something in her chest loosen slightly. "I'd like to know you," Walter said. "Not all at once, just, if you'd let me. I'd like to know who you turned out to be." She looked at him. This 72-year-old man in a good suit, who'd sat in a parking lot for an hour gathering himself, who'd driven 4 hours on a Tuesday night, who had eaten dinner alone long enough that it wasn't a complaint anymore, just the weather. "I'm a waitress in a diner," she said. "I know, I came here. I'm 39, and I rent a house with a leak I haven't fixed, and I'm probably not going to fix it." She wasn't sure why she was saying this. "I have my mother's bracelet and her handwriting and her way of not saying things. That's mostly what I've got." He nodded. Like that was enough. Like that was actually quite a lot. "I don't know what to do with you," she said, "just honest. Nothing else." "Neither do I," he said. I thought about it for 7 months and I still don't know. I just knew I couldn't keep not doing it." She got up and topped off both their coffees, even though neither cup was empty. She needed to move. He came back in November, twice. He texted first each time, formal, careful texts, the kind a person writes when they're afraid of taking up too much space. She said yes both times without a lot of deliberation, which surprised her. He asked about her life with real curiosity, the kind you can't fake because it shows up in the wrong questions, the smaller ones. He asked about Dottie. He asked how long the drive was to Kerrville and whether she still went back. He remembered things she'd mentioned and brought them up later, which no one had done for her in a while. She asked him things too, and about growing up in Odessa, about the company, about whether he'd been happy. He thought about that last one for a while before he answered, which was the honest response. "I was good at it," he said. "That's not the same thing." "No," she said, "it's not." He had a brother in El Paso he saw at Christmas. That was mostly it. No one who'd come if something happened in the night. He said it without any apparent expectation of pity, just describing his own life accurately. "You could change some of that," she said. "Some of it, maybe." He looked at her. "I'm working on it." She didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded. But she thought about it later, driving home. The fact that he'd said working on it and not trying or I know, like he'd actually sat down and made a plan instead of just hoping. In December, she texted him, "There's an open chair here Tuesday if you want it." He wrote back in 9 minutes, "I'll be there." She put the phone down. She didn't know what Walter Pruitt was going to be in her life. She didn't know if there was a name for it or if they'd just have to build something that didn't have one and see what it turned into. She wasn't ready to call him anything and wasn't sure she ever would be. She thought about what her mother had written. He does the right thing about 15 years too late, and how Carol had still kept the bracelet. How she'd worn it every day and never said a word and left a letter with a lawyer just in case. Carol Harlow had been furious at Walter Pruitt for years, and then she'd stopped being furious, and she'd worn the bracelet anyway. That said something. Norma wasn't sure what yet, but it said something. She opened the diner at 6 on Tuesday, turned on the lights, started the coffee, did the wipe down, set 2 cups at the table by the window out of habit, then stood there looking at them. Outside, it was December, still dark, quiet. Nothing out there yet. Just the parking lot and the hill country beyond it, and the cold coming in under the door. She went back to the counter, picked up her cloth. The door would either open or it wouldn't. She'd spent enough of her life bracing for things that were already on their way. What she was, finally, was just here, working, waiting, ready or close enough to it